Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really specific moment from history captured right here in the text of Jeremiah chapter 40.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We're looking at what happens immediately after the big catastrophe, the fall of Jerusalem, the exile to Babylon starting.
Right. So not the exile itself today, but, well, what about the people left behind? That's the focus here, isn't it? The choices they face, trying to figure out what's next.
Exactly. The setting is post-capture Judah. Lots of people are being marched off to Babylon. But this chapter zooms in on a small group, a remnant, still in the land. And it's the start of this very uncertain new phase under Babylonian control.
A mix of total devastation and maybe a fragile attempt to rebuild something.
That's a good way to put it. Fragile is definitely the word.
So we start with Jeremiah himself. Chapter 40 kicks off with him at a place called Ramah.
Hmm.
And the text paints this really vivid picture. He's actually bound in chains, right there with the other captives from Jerusalem and Judah being hauled off to Babylon.
Yeah, he's literally caught up in the deportation process. Yeah. It looks like he's going into exile, too.
But then Nebuzaradan steps in. He's the commander of the Imperial Guard, the top Babylonian military guy on the scene.
Right, the big cheese.
Yeah.
And he spots Jeremiah.
And this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? What Nebuzaradan actually says to Jeremiah.
It's quite something. Nebuzaradan basically pulls him aside, and according to the text, he gives this theological interpretation of the whole disaster.
Wait, the Babylonian commander does?
Yeah. He tells Jeremiah, essentially, look, the Lord your God planned this disaster for this place, and now he's done it just like he said he would.
Wow.
And he goes on, saying, this all happened because you people, meaning the Judahites, sinned against the Lord and didn't obey him.
Okay, hang on. That's huge, coming from the conqueror, right? It's not just we won, you lost. He's framing it, according to the text anyway, in terms of Judah's relationship with their God.
Exactly. It reinforces the whole prophetic message Jeremiah himself had been delivering, that this wasn't just a random military defeat, but a consequence foretold. Imagine Jeremiah hearing his own message echoed by the Babylonian general.
Must have been surreal. And then comes the offer. Freedom.
Right. Nebuzaradan says, today I am freeing you from the chains on your wrists. He literally unchains him.
Physically takes the chains off and then gives him this incredible choice.
Yeah, he lays it out. Come with me to Babylon if you want, and I'll look after you. Basically, safety and provision under Babylonian protection. Or, if you don't want to come, then don't. Look, the whole country is open to you. Go wherever you want.
That's a staggering amount of personal freedom right in the middle of this national catastrophe and forced migration. A real crossroads for Jeremiah.
Absolutely. Go into exile with potential security or stay in a homeland that's just been devastated.
What influences his decision? Does Nebuzaradan offer any, guidance?
He does, actually. Before Jeremiah fully decides or leaves Ramah, Nebuzaradan adds a specific suggestion. He says something like, maybe you should go back to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam.
Gedaliah. Okay, who's he?
The text tells us he's the guy the king of Babylon has just appointed as governor over the towns of Judah, specifically over the poorest people left behind, the ones not exiled.
Ah, so the new local authority under the Babylonians.
Precisely. Nebuzaradan points Jeremiah towards him at Mizpah, suggesting he live there among the remaining people, or, go anywhere else. But the suggestion is there.
And the text mentions Nebuzaradan also gives Jeremiah supplies and a gift before letting him go.
Yeah, provisions and a present. So it's a supportive release, in a way.
So Jeremiah makes his choice. He decides to stay.
He does. He goes to Gedaliah at Mizpah and settles in with the people who remained in the land.
Okay, so Jeremiah finds a place. Meanwhile, what's happening elsewhere in Judah?
Well, word starts getting around. Remember those army officers and their men who were kind of scattered, maybe hiding out in the countryside, avoiding capture?
Yeah.
They start hearing the news. The king of Babylon has put Gedaliah in charge.
So they hear there's a new governor, a Judahite governor, even if appointed by Babylon.
Exactly. And specifically, the text notes Gedaliah is governor over the men, women, and children who are the poorest in the land, the ones not exiled. So learning this, these military figures start heading towards Mizpah, where Gedaliah is.
They're coming in from the field, basically.
Yeah, the text lists several names: Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanan and Jonathan, the sons of Kareah, Saraiah, son of Tanhumeth, some others. Key figures who are leading these scattered bands of soldiers.
So you have Gedaliah, the appointed governor, trying to establish some order, and now these military commanders, who are kind of wild cards, show up. How does Gedaliah react? Must have been tense.
It could have been very tense. But Gedaliah seems pretty pragmatic. The text says he actually takes an oath to reassure them.
An oath? What does he promise?
He tells them straight up, don't be afraid to serve the Babylonians. His advice is practical. Settle down here in the land, serve the king of Babylon, and things will go well for you.
So cooperation is the strategy. Accept the reality of Babylonian rule.
Pretty much. And he positions himself as their liaison. He says, I'll stay here at Mizpah myself, and I'll represent you when the Babylonians show up. Like, I'll handle the occupiers. You guys just focus on rebuilding.
And he gives them practical things to do, right? Not just political advice.
Yes, very practical. He tells them, go harvest the wine, the summer fruit, the oil, store it up, live in the towns you've managed to hold on to or occupy.
So get back to farming, get back to basic survival, establish yourselves.
Exactly. Reestablish normalcy as much as possible under the circumstances. And you know what? According to the text, it actually starts working.
Really? How so?
News spreads beyond Judah. Jews who had fled to nearby countries, the text mentions Moab, Ammon, Edom, other places, they hear that there's a remnant left in Judah and that Gedaliah is governing.
So people who ran away are hearing there's maybe a chance to come back.
Precisely. And incredibly they do. The text says they came back from all the countries where they had been scattered. They came back to Judah, specifically to Gedaliah at Mizpah.
That's actually the opposite of the exile happening simultaneously. People are returning.
It's a remarkable little counter-narrative right there in the text. And it seems to have been, initially at least, successful. It says they harvested an abundance of wine and summer fruit.
An abundance. So this fragile community under Gedaliah is actually starting to stabilize, maybe even prosper a little bit. There's a moment of hope here.
Definitely seems that way. A moment of hopeful consolidation after utter disaster. People gathering, food being harvested. It looks like Gedaliah's pragmatic approach might be working.
Okay, that sounds almost positive. But knowing how these stories often go, I suspect there's a but coming.
Well, yes. Just as this fragile community seems to be finding its feet, the chapter takes a sharp, dramatic turn.
What happens?
The Hanan, son of Kareah, remember him, one of the officers who came to Mizpah earlier, he and the other officers approach Gedaliah again.
Okay, they're back. Is this just a routine check-in?
Doesn't seem like it. There's an urgency here.
Yeah.
Yohanan comes with a specific and very serious warning for Gedaliah.
A warning?
About what? He says to Gedaliah, point blank, don't you know that Baalis, the king of the Ammonites, has sent Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, to kill you?
Whoa. Okay, let's break that down. Baalis, king of Ammon, a neighboring kingdom, potentially hostile.
Right.
And he's apparently sent Ishmael, one of the Judahite officers who had just joined Gedaliah at Mizpah, on an assassination mission.
That's the warning Johanan delivers. A threat from within their own recently gathered group, allegedly orchestrated by a foreign king aiming to take out the Babylonian-appointed governor.
That's incredibly dangerous. How does Gedaliah react? Does he take it seriously?
This is the crucial part. The text is very clear. It says Gedaliah did not believe them.
He didn't believe them, just dismisses it.
Outright dismissal. He doesn't seem to entertain the possibility that it might be true.
But Johanan seems convinced, right? Does he just let it go?
No, the tension really ramps up. Johanan apparently feels so strongly about this threat that he approaches Gedaliah again, this time privately, in secret.
Okay.
And he doesn't just repeat the warning, he offers a drastic solution. He pleads with Gedaliah, let me go and kill Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and nobody will know about it.
He offers to preemptively assassinate the potential assassin, secretly.
Exactly. And his reason, as the text presents it, is all about protecting the community. He argues, why should Ishmael take your life? If he does, all the Jews gathered around you will be scattered, and the remnant of Judah will perish.
Wow. So Johanan sees this as an existential threat. He believes Gedaliah's life is the linchpin holding this fragile remnant community together. If Gedaliah falls,
everything unravels. The stability, the harvest, the safety they've tentatively found under Babylonian oversight. Johanan fears it will all collapse, scattering the people and destroying what little is left of Judah. His proposed solution is brutal, but he frames it as necessary for survival.
A desperate measure to prevent total collapse. What does Gedaliah say to that? Surely the private plea, the reasoning.
You'd think it might sway him, but no. According to the text, Gedaliah's response is absolute. He forbids Johanan from doing it.
He forbids him.
Unequivocally. He tells Johanan essentially, don't you dare do such a thing. And he doubles down on his disbelief, stating firmly that this story about Ishmael is not true.
So he doesn't just disbelieve the intelligence. He actively prevents any action based on it, convinced it's false information.
That's exactly where chapter 40 leaves us. with Gedaliah, the governor, confidently standing by his assessment, dismissing a direct warning about a plot against his life, a plot Yohanan believes will destroy the entire community if successful.
Leaving this newly formed community, this remnant, in an incredibly precarious position. You have the leader appointed, trying to make things work.
Right, Gedaliah, who's managed to bring people back, encourage harvesting, create a semblance of order through cooperation with Babylon.
But he's also willfully blind, it seems, to a potentially fatal threat from within, a threat that others clearly see and fear.
Precisely. The chapter ends on this knife edge of tension.
So, wrapping up our look at Jeremiah 40, what are the big takeaways? We clearly see themes of, well, freedom versus constraint, Jeremiah's personal freedom against the backdrop of national captivity.
Definitely. And leadership under occupation. Gedaliah's pragmatic, cooperative strategy versus the simmering dangers.
Yeah, and that stark contrast between trust and disbelief. Yohanan's urgent warning, Gedaliah's fatal confidence, maybe?
That interaction is key. It highlights the immense challenges facing this community trying to rebuild. You've got the Babylonian perspective on why this all happened, Gedaliah's plan for survival, Yohanan's deep fear for the remnant's future.
And then Gedaliah just shuts down that fear and says everything's fine.
Leaving us with this really unsettling situation.
So a final thought then, perhaps for you listening to consider, based just on what we've read in this chapter. What do you think are the likely consequences of Gedaliah's decision? Given Yohanan's explicit warning about scattering and destruction, what does Gedaliah's refusal to believe portend for this fragile remnant trying to survive in Judah?
Yeah, what seeds are planted right here at the end of chapter 40? Something to think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us today into this really complex and human story from Jeremiah 40.